Good evening, good morning, good night, whenever, I don't care. My name's Ryan Tofil, that's Bryan Chai. You're listening to Unpopular Opinions. Before we get into stuff, I just want to thank eToro for sponsoring today's show. eToro is a crypto trading service platform, and you go online, you create an account, and you can trade your crypto there. But what's really unique about eToro is they give you the opportunity to make a fake money profile. You know what I'm saying, Brian? So you get $100,000 of fake currency, and then you can trade with that, and try to turn that into $200,000. And then once you've done that with fake money, you got your gumption up a little bit. Just put $100,000 of your own dollars in there and turn that into $200,000 real dollars. It is that simple. So thank you, eToro. And now on to some unpopular opinions. Jeez Louise, so we're actually like I'm usually on that side, and you can't see where my hand is. I'm usually on that side, but now the camera's got like flipped. We're twerking with two cameras instead of one. We used to just jam on the same screen. Now we're on separate screens. Mm-hmm. But the camera that's on me puts me on the side of the screen that I used to be on, but I'm not in the same seat anymore.
It's weird.
So World of Warcraft making a little bit of a comeback with the classic, Brian.
Let me just say, what a friggin' brilliant business decision. Take something old. I mean, I think they updated it or added something to it without messing with the integrity of the original vanilla Warcraft. But it just blows my mind that their servers are literally overflowing because apparently people just really want to play OG World of Warcraft.
Did you ever play the original?
I did.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah, I played kind of a lot. Not kind of a lot. I played decently through the third expansion.
So once these expansions came out, could you go back to the original? Like, I don't understand, what is re-releasing OG Warcraft even mean? I don't because if you I don't know. I mean, if I'm playing Cards Against Humanity or something else that comes out with a bunch of expansion packs or even a video game, and I download the expansions, I can still access the content of the original thing. So I don't really understand what's going on here.
With each expansion, the world kind of changes. Just as an example, I want to say Cataclysm, one of the expansions, I guess spoiler alert if you haven't played in World of Warcraft, there's the big bad of that expansion is this dragon that in the opening cinematic just breaks the map in half, burns down major hub cities that you may have been gotten used to, stuff like that. And
so now they've just restored everything to day one.
Exactly.
And they didn't make any changes. The graphics are still the same.
From what I've watched a few people play it. Yeah, from what I could tell, it looks exactly the same as I remember it.
So I don't really understand it. I saw on Reddit that people were waiting in queues outside of dungeons.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It blows my mind. I'd like to think I'm fairly well tapped into, gamer culture, nerd culture.
Well, yeah, you're not well tapped into anything else, so you got to pick something.
Pro wrestling culture.
Oh. You're not into anything that anybody else cares about.
Very true. But yeah, so as someone who knows about, or likes to think he knows about gamer culture, I didn't think there was this much of a demand for, vanilla Warcraft. I'm genuinely surprised how popular it's gotten.
People, are just really sentimental, and I think that's what we've seen in the video game world with the massively successful re-releases of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot and the original, or not the original, the original remaster. Crash Bandicoot must have been really successful because they then did Spyro. What else have they done recently? Oh, they did Uncharted, but that was a little bit before Crash Bandicoot. I'm talking about stuff from the PS1 and previous. where they're remastering or remaking these things. People just love them, and
it isn't out yet, but I know a lot of people are super hyped about the Final Fantasy VII like remake.
Yeah, the Sega Genesis Mini, which is just pretty much a re-release, and people are getting all pumped to pay for these games over and over again. But it makes sense. Like, obviously, it's quite an avalanche of remasters and remakes, but like, there's a little bit of a limit to how much you can do in any particular medium. Like, being a comedian nowadays is a lot harder than I feel like it used to be, because like all of the obvious jokes are just gone. Like, comedians have, like, are we eventually going to run out of stuff that we perceive as funny, and then like making comedy movies or comedy specials is going to be like a thing of the past? Like, because there's just nothing more funny to be said. And that's kind of how we're getting with video games, where
to be fair, a lot of entertainment, like, just, I mean, look at Disney. Like, they've pretty much given up even pretending to come up with new stuff. Like, their big hits recently are all live action versions of movies that came out in the 90s.
Well, why don't we took the stuff that was wildly successful, and with the advances in technologies in the last 30 years, just make them even better? Like, I haven't been too much into Crash Team Racing lately, because after about the first 2 weeks, I just wasn't playing enough to keep up with anybody online. I know I was having a really, really good time with it when I could be competitive or even dominant online. I played a lot of CTR growing up, and then when the remake, I'm trying to keep remake and remaster, because they added and tweaked some stuff in CTR that'd be a remake. I was dominating like the first 2 weeks. There was one time where I won 5 online races in a row against 7 other people. And then there started to become where like I was having trouble winning, and now I'm having trouble staying out of last place, and I probably haven't played it in about a month and a half, just because the enjoyment was gone, because I was just a filthy casual at that point. But when it first came out, I was really, really enjoying it, and you just got... I felt like I did when I was a kid. Like, when I'm 10 years old playing Crash Team Racing, it felt like I was looking at the same thing that I'm looking at today. Like, Dan needs my keys that are
stand by
in my pocket. Dan is stealing my car. So
nice.
7 minutes and 30 seconds in, Dan, if you want to take mental note of that. I know you're not going to edit this out probably, but they're going to love it. Whatever I was talking about probably wasn't important.
Well, I did kind of, because I have been recently, so my wife bought me some video game cards, like, currency cards, and I bought some games yesterday. So I got new stuff to play now. But before that, I was kind of in a gaming rut. So I was going through my old backlog on my PS4. I was like, there's nothing I really want to play. And I saw that I had purchased, I didn't realize I bought it when I did, Castlevania Requiem, which is a port of Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Symphony of the Night was the one for Xbox 360?
PS1. It came out in 98, 99?
So Xbox Live is just giving away, as gold, they give away their 3 free games a month, and some Castlevania one was on there, and I downloaded it. I may have deleted it. I don't know. I never played it.
Well, if it's Castlevania Requiem, I'd highly recommend it. I think, so you kind of touched on it earlier about just, nostalgia, like we're talking about WoW here, like just a lot of nostalgia.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was saying when Dan cut me off, is like when I booted up CTR in the year 2002, like I felt like I was looking at something that was just going to blow me away, or that did blow me away.
Yeah.
And like CTR in 2002, or when it came out in 2001 or whatever, it looked to 10-year-old me like it looks to 27-year-old me when it's in high definition.
Yeah, I bet. Like, it is crazy how some graphics age and how because I imagine if 27-year-old you went back and played OG Crash, probably look kind of ugly, I imagine.
It doesn't look great. I mean, I went back and played that a little bit as the Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, which I believe is the title of the new one, was coming out. Just to kind of brush up a little bit. And, excuse me, Dan insisted I have some seltzer water, and now it's coming back up into the mic, so that's all right. It's not my mic. I don't have to deal with it. It didn't look that bad, but I do know what you're saying. The first generation of 3D games has not aged well. Like, no. I think that games probably would have been better off in sprites for a few more years. Like early Madden games or early sports games in general in 3D are nearly unplayable now.
Yeah, and I think that goes for that whole generation. Like, it's kind of crazy. So going back to Castlevania, that kind of kicked me off on this, maybe not necessarily retro kick, but playing games from that era, and just these games that I remember blowing my mind, like the original Metal Gear Solid. As a kid, I thought it was just the craziest thing ever. Now it just kind of looks like butt. Like it does not look good. But real quick, I did want to touch on Castlevania.
Okay.
So
tell us about it.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night. It took every the genre is called Metroidvania, but Castlevania Symphony of the Night was the first one that really, I think, perfected the formula. Like, Super Metroid's a great game on the Super Nintendo, but Castlevania blows it out of the water, or Symphony of the Night specifically.
I've never played through any of the Metroid games, but I have played like the first level of a few of them, and I could see how people would really like it. Honestly, it's just like a little too in depth for me, and I know that's weird to say, but I hate RPGs. The only ones really that I've ever played are Pokemon. And anything that makes me feel like I've made a decision that could negatively impact me later on, it just gives me too much anxiety, and I start overthinking these situations early in the game, and it's just not fun.
Overwhelming.
Yeah. It is like if you have a choice to like equip certain weapons or something, like Mega Man, I even feel like that. Like I feel like I'm like cheating myself or something if I'm not using the right weapon for the boss, and I also feel like it's not fair to look it up, and so like there's no way that I'm going to put the work into the game that is required to figure out like what order you should do the bosses to get the right weapons, and I start to feel overwhelmed, and it just feels like too much. I've never liked RPGs. With Pokemon, it was a little different because you could just get Pokemon that you think were cool, and then pretty much just grind your way to the top. I mean, I always picked Charmander when I was a kid, and I never even thought about it until later how much harder I made the first two bosses on myself. But I didn't really worry about it because to me, who had never picked anyone else, I just went into the weeds and fought people till I was 5 levels higher than Brock's Pokemon. Man, the seltzer water. Oh,
I know, man. It's pretty bubbly.
That's some bubsy stuff.
So, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, going back and playing it as I'm about to turn 31. I'm old. Playing it as a still 30-year-old.
Ronald Reagan was president when you were born.
Yeah, I'm aware.
That's crazy.
But so going back, so Castlevania Symphony of the Night came out in, I want to say, sometime between 97 and 99, one of those years, late 90s. And like, wow, I was worried that, this game I had such great memories of was just purely like nostalgia glasses. Right. But going back and playing this port on my PS4, I've come to the realization of two things. Number one, Castlevania Symphony of the Night is a perfect game.
Perfect game. Like Grand Theft Auto 5?
Is that a perfect game?
Grand Theft Auto 5, apart from Trevor just being so annoying, and you're like, I don't even feel like Trevor. Like, Trevor's really unbelievable. like I don't know. I mean, I guess that someone he does like meth or crack or whatever, he could just like be completely unhinged. But you just spend the whole time like being angry at him and being annoyed with him, and you're like, okay, Trevor, like calm down. And he just causes so many more problems. It's like the one example I always go to with Breaking Bad, and I've talked to people who've really liked the shows, is when Walter White is finally becoming like a really, really notorious drug dealer, and he's like one of the most wanted men in the entire state. An officer pulls him over for speeding, and instead of just doing what he has to do to get his speeding ticket and get out of there, he starts talking back to him. And he won't turn his music down. And, some people who like the show is like, well, that's just showing the evolution of Heisenberg, and it's showing like how much more confident he's getting. And I'm just like, no, like where Walt came from, and at that stage he would never, I just feel like he would never have
it's out of character
like that. Yeah, it is out of and I feel like there was so much of that from Trevor, but not in a way where you were like, oh yeah, he clearly is a madman and he'll just do anything, but like in a way where you kind of just he was unpredictable in a bad way and just annoying.
It takes you out of the immersion is what you're kind of saying.
Yeah.
So Trevor aside, you think GTA 5 is a perfect game?
I think it's pretty close. I think it's the best game in the last 10 years.
That's fair.
I think it takes all of the storytelling that Red Dead does, except it does it in a way that's much more fun. It takes everything about Red Dead in terms of immersion and puts it into the action and the exploration of the game, as opposed to like Campfire Simulator and like, okay, it's kind of difficult and tedious to catch fish, so that's how we're gonna make it in Red Dead.
All right, that's fair. Okay, so Castlevania, perfect game.
Yeah, I keep talking about other things.
It's all good.
Like, let me get to Castlevania.
Well, just because it's and number two, it made me realize I've always kind of been one of those people who's like, I'm not sure video games should be considered art. I think Castlevania makes me feel that video games should be considered art. Because it is a masterclass of design. So I guess I'm going to spoil like a 20-something-year-old game here. But
yeah, you did that to me with the first Red Dead Redemption. And I was like, come on. And then I never went. I probably was never going to play it anyways.
But so in Castlevania, there is about a third of the way through the game, you play, you unlock this massive map, this castle that you're exploring, Dracula's castle. And about like third-ish of the way through the game, you fight the main character from the direct predecessor to that game, which I believe was called Castlevania Rondo of Blood. As in like Rajon Rondo. I don't.
Yeah, that's a classic, dude.
Yeah. But
the sequel is JaVale McGee of Pain or whatever.
I like it. But so the guy Richter Belmont, he's the main character from the previous game.
I know Simon Belmont from Castlevania.
Yeah, he's a direct descendant of Simon. And so in Symphony of the Night, you play as Alucard, who's Dracula's son, and it's also Dracula spelt backwards, which I find really stupid.
Alucard.
So anyways, Alucard fights Richter, and you can just kill him. But if you do that, and the game ends, like you get the worst ending. Richter's dead. And for a lot of people at the time, because in the late 90s, the internet wasn't super prevalent yet. A lot of people thought that was the end of the game. I thought it was the end of the game. But it turns out there is a specific item that you can get before you fight Richter, where you see this evil priest controlling Richter, and if you kill him, the evil priest, and not Richter, you unlock the inverted castle. So the reason I think this game is just a masterclass of design is the entire layout of the original castle gets flipped upside down, and it still works. Like, that blows my mind. So like all those spires that used to be on the ceiling now work as platforms that you can jump across because the castle's upside down.
Brian is pumped.
I know. It's a great game. Like like I said, it just made me happy that this wasn't nostalgia fueled. Like I went back and playing it as an adult. I'm like, this game is freaking great. I feel like if I went back and played WoW, I would just pound my head against the wall.
Yeah. This is a time of the year where a lot of new sports games are coming out, and so we just had Madden. We're about to get FIFA, NBA, and NHL. Boy, FIFA, I don't even know when that I used to play FIFA religiously, and I used to be on there at 12:01 a.m. when that game came out, and now it's been the same. But I was thinking, you go back and you look, let's just pick the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis as examples. They had different game engines, I feel, or at least like player models, and there was like a distinct visual style and a different style in the way the game played every single year. I know that 93, 94, 95, and then I think for Madden, 96, 97, and 98 were all the same. And in NHL, it was NHLPA 93, NHL 94 were in the same style, but then 95 was different, and then 96 was different.
You feel like we don't get that anymore?
No, I feel like we get in. I totally understand that these new games are so complex where, you've got the way like bodies react up against each other that you just never had in earlier games. Like, think about how many more calculations are going into a layup in NBA 2K19 versus NBA Live 96.
Yeah.
Like in NBA Live 96, the defenders had no like situational awareness or something, and it was just like they would jump when it was time to block a shot, and if they hit the ball great. And nowadays you can have different layup animations and stuff like that, and there's contact in different areas that'll make the players react differently. So it would be really, really hard, especially if you were doing this not in an animation-based game, but like a physics-based game, if that makes sense. So, NBA 2K series used to be a lot worse about this, where you get locked into an animation and then there's a second or two where you can't do anything.
Yeah.
And there have been competitors like, I think it was Backbreaker Football, that was just entirely physics-based. So there were no canned like interaction animations. So there were obviously animations because you have to have something animated in the game for someone to be able to do that. But like when they get tackled, it wouldn't just automatically go into like, this is a tackling animation.
Like a gang tackling. Yeah.
It would like compute like, okay, if this guy got hit from this side, this is what would happen to his arm and this. And it would, take into account who the running back was and who the linebacker was that's tackling him and make all the different body parts and characters, at least down to the smallest details that they could program, react differently based on physics. Whereas in Madden today, what you get is you get somebody coming in for a tackle, and then like as soon as they make contact, the game knows what's going to happen 2 seconds from then. And you're just watching it play out, whether it's like a wrap-up animation or the game knows like, hey, I'm just going to randomly cause a fumble here for no reason.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is between two different styles, but my original point is maybe what I would like to see is just every 3 or 4 years when Madden or NBA comes out with like a new engine and the game actually plays differently, just charge people $60 for the game then, and then, if you want to make your money off DLC, fine, but just keep updating the rosters for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I think that would get so much goodwill from customers, where the customer's like, hey, they're business, they're still trying to make money, but they're trying to give us the best product that they can at all times, and they're not selling us an upgrade that really isn't an upgrade.
Yeah, I do. I mean, like, I think sports games are just ripe to be. So, I mean, we always talk about, or in the video game industry, they talk about video games as like a service or a platform, like not like. So, like you said, it wouldn't be Madden 20, to be Madden.
Yeah.
And then, every year you could spend, $15, get the new rookies put into the game and all the roster updates done.
Sure.
I think that might be closer than we think, because kind of going with what you said about FIFA, like I'm a huge NBA fan. Like basketball is probably my favorite sport. And this is the first year in a long while where I'm I don't, you know, I think NBA, like you said, NBA 2K comes out pretty soon. I don't have it pre-ordered like I usually do.
Yeah.
And I think part of it, now that you kind of made me think about this, is maybe sports games have just kind of peaked. Like, I can't, like you said,
probably, except the argument there is I don't know how Madden is as popular as it is, because since the PS2, maybe Madden 10, I was like, okay, this is really, but like, you know, I remember going and playing the new Maddens on PS2 and stuff, and you know, I was a kid without my own money, and my parents weren't buying me the new edition every year. So if I was playing Madden 2004, then I went over to a friend's house that had Madden 2005, it felt like I was playing a way newer, way better game. And
well, but that's what I'm saying though, is like, so like when the PS5 and Xbox Scarlet or whatever it's called, when those debut and they have all this extra processing power and like what can they really do, like with like what can they do in sports games to make them feel like this grand improvement? Because you know, there was that one year I remember they were mocked because like 2K was showing off like, oh, look at the sweat beads on Shaq's forehead. Yeah. Like, is that really what we want to use all this extra processing power to do, is like make sweat beads look realistic? Like, I'm not sure where sports games can go from here. Because so I bought Madden day one. I was excited, but I think part of that was like, number one, I just wanted football back in my life.
Yeah.
And like at this point, like I'm already kind of like winding down, and you know, it's been out for less than a month, and I'm already like, well, I mean, I've probably got my money's worth from it. I put a lot of hours into it. But yeah, like it feels like sports games have hit a ceiling, and I don't know what the next big development will be. Because like I said, I normally have NBA 2K pre-ordered, ready to go day one by now already, and that's not the case right now.
I don't know what year you want to pick it. If it was maybe 2014 to 2017, somewhere in there. You know, I know before 2010, NHL was like the most next gen feeling game for me, and in the late noughts, playing NHL like felt like you were playing a game from the future. And then shortly after that, FIFA and NBA started to get there, and Madden, I'm just ignoring it because it's been really, really bad since like the PS3 era.
Well, it's funny. I had someone on Twitter. It was a part of a Twitter conversation chain, but yeah, it's like I honestly can't pinpoint a single meaningful difference between franchise mode in Madden 20 versus franchise mode in like Madden 2004. Like it's jarring.
Except that like 2000, I don't know, whenever they had like the Tony Bruno show in there and everything, the franchise mode used to be better, and you had, you know, like players coming to you asking for different playing times. You had position battles in the preseason, and it felt better. I think that the NBA 2K series does a pretty decent job with their franchise mode. But yeah, like I was saying, these games, you know, around 2010 and then even earlier for the NHL series, you felt like it was really getting there. And then each year after that, up until like 15 to 17, we were just getting a little bit closer to what the ultimate goal was. And but like you could tell there were, you know, whether it's the way the players reacted to each other or interacted with each other, because I know that they've pretty much mastered being able to make one person do whatever they want. But you know, whether it's tackling in FIFA or Madden or contact in NHL and NBA, like that's where, you know, we kind of lose touch with reality in terms of like what would actually happen when these two forces came together, because they're just like exponentially increasing the variables that happen when you've got two people fighting for a ball versus one person running down the field. But we were getting better and better each year, and then maybe just like a couple 2-3 years ago, it just stopped. Like, it seemed like for all the series, and now, I mean, all 4 of these like big 4 North American sports games feel like they've been the same since 2016. And there have been really, really small changes, like in the way players will shoot, or maybe some of the strategy, or now this year running doesn't work quite as well. You can't like just gain 3 yards when you need it just by going up the middle. Sometimes you'll just get stopped for no reason and you have to react to a play. They'll make little changes like that, but they're not making the feel any different. They're not making the presentation any different. They aren't adding in anything that's actually changing the way you play the game.
Because I like you said, I am very curious to see what happens with sports games as this new generation of consoles is upon us, probably about a year out from that. Because it makes a lot of, like, it's easy to see how certain games like, you know, Skyrim, for example, like people just seem less wooden, like better AI. But with sports games, it's not, you can't really see where they go next with sports games, like you said, unless it's just some massive overhaul, which at this point, you know, those games print money. Like, why would EA overhaul Madden, you know, at this stage of the game?
NBA is probably my favorite game, and maybe even favorite sport right now, and I think that those things correlate. At least for me, I enjoy watching soccer on TV more when the FIFA video game is good, and I feel like I have fun playing the video game, so I buy it and then I play, and I see how these different players perform differently, and maybe some guy who isn't rated super high actually performs above his rating a little bit, and he becomes like a cult favorite in my own heart, and I have a little bit more interest to see how he's doing in real life or something like that. And I think NHL's been the same for a very long time. I think FIFA's been the same. I don't think Madden has been good in like 10 years. And so I think that NBA is the best, NBA 2K is the best sports game out there right now. And even if it's not perfect, I know it's not, it's just flooded with microtransactions, and there are a lot of things that they could change that they're just not. I don't know if it's for money-making purposes or if it's for just needing to wait until a new game engine comes out, but there are like a lot of flaws with the way players react on defense and stuff like that, and they have trouble like filling the lane correctly on fast breaks and knowing, you know, when they should be around the 3-point line or when they should cut in. You know, if we've been having this game series for 20 years now, your 35 3-point shot center should not post up in the corner for a 3.
Yeah.
Like, he never would do that in real life, and that's just like broken logic within the game, and we still keep getting that, and it makes people furious that it's been like that for so long, or they have so much time and energy and resources to put into research of figuring out how to make the gambling dopamine effect come out to make people spend the most for VC. You know how many hours of research they've probably done just deciding like what the tiers are for VC to like maximize profit to get people to pay the most over the course of the season. Like, okay, so we don't want to make the top ones too good of a value, but we need to make them better, but we can't keep going with the discounts, because then somebody will just pay $100 and be set for the rest of the year. You know, we need to find some sweet spots where it's like, okay, it's really going to take $200 to like maximize your ultimate team or maximize your my player.
Yeah.
Something that doesn't seem so astronomical that it's like unachievable from day one, and they're just not going to spend anything. So they're putting all the research into that. Meanwhile, they still have, you know, Dwight Howard fading out to the 3-point line on a fast break. Like, that's what makes people furious, is if you've perfected everything else about your game, then go ahead, figure out how to gouge us for more money. But I think
there's room for improvement in all these games.
There's room for improvement, and I think that it would get so much goodwill from people and just totally reinvigorate their faith into video games if you're updating the rosters and stuff, and you can make it so that your ultimate team, or my team as it's called in the 2K series, just resets every year at the beginning of the league season. And like, okay, we've got a new set of cards, and now all the players are in the 80s again, so we can work back up towards the 90s 10 months later.
Yeah, so traditionally, like before this year, actually, for Madden, I pretty much only exclusively played franchise mode. I love just being the fake GM and getting Tom Brady a new receiver, a young receiver, or better O-line, stuff like that. I just love doing that. But this year, I don't know why. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's just I'm getting kind of burnt out, and I want to try something new in my Madden. Yeah. So this year, I kind of got sucked into Ultimate Team.
You spending real money?
No. I can't. It's a $65 game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but that's the thing that blew my mind is I'm looking at my Ultimate Team, and I saw in in-game store, there's like, oh, buy this like Legends pack, and I was curious because I kind of wanted. I thought about spending real money to get the. They just released a new like commemorative Andrew Luck card, like a 92 overall. Dude just retired. So I was looking at the best way to do it, and looking at it, there was these certain packs you can only buy with points, and these certain points can only purchase with real money. So just out of curiosity, I went into that and looked it up. To get the pack that would have probably given me a fairly good shot at Andrew Luck would have been $75, literally more than the cost of the base game. That is disgusting.
And then I just talked about it a little bit, but what I meant is they go up from 80s to 90s. Is now they've gotten into this thing. From what I remember of Ultimate Team when I was playing it back in, it would have been FIFA 11. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much all of the players went into Ultimate Team mode as good as they were in the normal play now mode, and you just you had to spend more money to get better players like Ronaldo or something like that. But now what all these games have done is NBA is the worst. Like, they will literally shave like 6 to 10 points off superstars, and they'll like the best card you can get around launch is going to be like an 89 overall or something when, and that's LeBron or Kevin Durant. Meanwhile, those guys are 95, 97 in play now. And they do that so over the course of the year, they make you keep spending money because the average player is of higher quality. So now this 89 overall LeBron that you got out of a pack that you spent $20 real on to get on day 2, on day 300, he's not even going to be in your top 50 best players. Yeah. So that's how they make you spend more and more money now, is they planned obsolescence of these players, even the ones that are costing real money.
Yeah, Madden's definitely gotten worse with that. Like, just as an example, Julian Edelman, one of my favorite players in the NFL, he, I think in just like play now, he's like high 80s. Mm-hmm. There is a version of him that starts off at 70 overall. Yeah. And you just gotta grind or, buy the stuff to get him up. And, just there is something fun to that, like an RPG-ish element to taking like a lower level character and building him up. But by that same token, like, just that grind, like I said, that actually, you know what? That doesn't bother me. The grind does kind of suck, but that doesn't bother me nearly as much as the idea of having to spend like hundreds of dollars for the chance that I might get the commemorative Andrew Luck card.
And they just make the grind so bad, and they make it so that as soon as you spend real money once, you realize how worth it seems. If you can accomplish something with $5 that would have taken you 30 hours. Mm-hmm. Like, you realize how futile your efforts are to like legitimately acquire those currencies without spending USD.
Yeah, I had my experience with that kind of stuff. Like, I went down a very slippery slope, and I had to stop myself from ever doing something similar. Was when I got really into Fallout Shelter. It's like a free-to-play mobile game. Okay. And it's like, you can buy this box of items and, you could get some good stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it's kind of embarrassing to admit this. I think I spent close to like $70 in that game, just lifetime. I mean, I did play it for a while, but I probably, but at a certain point, I hit this point where like the enemies were still too hard and all this stuff. I'm like, I've dropped $70 in this game and I'm still getting like stonewalled. Like, and it's just that after I realized that, I like deleted the app from my phone, and just since then I've kind of done my best. I think I spent like $5 in NBA 2K My Team once because it was like a guaranteed like 90 overall or something like that.
Yeah, I if I ever spend any money, which I've probably done, boy, it's well under like $30 lifetime for all games ever. It's just the welcome packs that give you, like 5 times the value that you would get. But I've been pretty good about buying only the ones that are meant to hook you.
Yeah.
Because you spend $5 the first time to get X amount of XP or whatever, just however you want to quantify it, it's going to cost you $15 after that welcome bonus. But you remember how good it felt to just get these good new players or this good pack. So, they're giving you a $15 experience for $5 in the hope that, you're going to come back. But I've been pretty good. The
first one's free. I mean, not free, but it's that whole concept.
To the rest, yeah.
Yeah. And that Fallout Shelter thing in particular, it blew my mind because I want to say like a year or so ago, I saw this report, financial earnings report. Bethesda has made more money from this POS free-to-play game than they have in like selling all their mainline Fallout games, which is, it blows my mind. It is also pretty depressing to think about. And, I can't really be mad at them. I was part of that problem. I freaking put $70 into that game. But yeah, it is a bit of a worrisome trend, I think, in video games as a whole, like the whole microtransaction thing. I'm fine with it to a certain extent, like Apex Legends, which you and I have played a few times, and I'm just awful at it.
Yeah, you're pretty bad.
I am pretty bad. There's, everything you can buy in that game appears to be cosmetic. Like the base game is free. There's nothing that locks you out from the core experience of Apex. I'm mostly okay with that, but when it comes to like the My Team stuff, like that it is such a nickel and diming, it's rough. And, and again, like I'm okay with most DLC. Like, I would never complain about the DLC for The Witcher 3, like big meaty expansions to an already like 80-hour game. Like, again, I'm fine with that. But it just seems to be that expansions like The Witcher 3 are becoming the exception and not the rule as far as DLC goes.
Yeah, it's getting to be a little bit of a tricky scenario because, you're not willing to pay more than $60 for a game. If somebody came out and tried to charge $90 for a base game, you think that they were a lunatic.
Yeah.
But, a Super Nintendo or an N64 game came out and cost at least $60, and look at like how much more content you're getting now for that $60. Like they just have more people to pay. They need to make money. They need like developers. There were probably like under 10 people that made, each of the first couple Super Mario Brothers. And now there's got to be like 1,000 people working on each Madden or whatever. That's like literally just multiply it out. That's how much more they owe the employees for creating this game.
Yeah, and I mean, if you put it in perspective like that, it does make some sense. Like, for example, like Mortal Kombat 11, I think just revealed their the new DLC pack of characters.
Yeah.
I think it's like $25, which seems a bit steep for a $60 video game. But then if you think about it, like, the difference between Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo was like 2 characters. Yeah. And you basically had to buy an entirely new game to get them. So in that sense, if you want to put in that perspective, that there's something to be said there. But again, like I just feel like there is a right way to do DLC and a wrong way to do DLC. And I feel like some of the stuff in Ultimate Team and My Team and all that stuff, I think that's the wrong way to do DLC because, like you said, that's tapping into people's gambling.
Yeah, and I'm glad that it's getting like a stigma around it because it got away for a few years without people being like, hold up, like at least mainstream or casual people being like, hold up, like this is pay to win and it's gambling. and gambling like releases the dopamine in your brain, and it treats your brain in the same way that either nicotine or street drugs or pornography does, and all of those things are like heavily regulated. Now, as someone who believes in small government, I'm not saying necessarily that we have to get the government in here and tell EA Sports what to do with their games, but I do believe in freedom of speech, and that if they are being predatory, not necessarily the government should shut them down, but people should realize it and like call them out on it, and don't spend the money on pay to win DLC.
Yeah.
If they are giving you more content, then that's fine. And that's the only thing that any of us can do about it, is speak with our wallets.
Yeah.
If you don't think that you're getting the value for a $60 game, and you feel, like whatever the next $20 is going to buy you should have been included in the main game, then don't buy the main game or the DLC. If you would have been happy getting this game for $60 without any DLC, and then you feel like you get $20 worth of new content, go ahead and buy the DLC.
Yeah.
But, that's if it's adding new levels or new uniforms or something, like, not like pay to win. That's I really, like, when has that ever been a thing in video games in the past?
Never.
It hasn't.
I guess if you want to think of it in the most literal sense, maybe
Be like feeding quarters into an arcade machine.
exactly. I was about to say, like, you get some of those beat 'em ups that are clearly designed for you to lose lives, and you kind of got to pay to get to the end, basically. But other than that, yeah, it does feel like a new era as far as like, nickel and diamond people to give them a competitive edge.
But even then, on those beat 'em ups, like, whether it was playing against the computer and trying to get to the end of the level with a friend, or you're playing against some stranger on a Street Fighter, like, you're both getting the same chance, like, per your quarter or whatever. And now it is not everyone getting the same chance per their investment in the base game. It is only the people who are willing to spend an absurd amount of money to, advance their players and stuff like that. And that's why it's wrong. But
speaking of gambling and sports, before I came in today, I looked it up just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
Eagles, last I checked, your beloved Philadelphia Eagles, over under 10.5 wins. What are you taking?
Ooh, that's... Man, if you would have asked me that without giving me the line, I probably would have said 10 wins this year.
So you're leaning towards the under.
I think so.
Okay. That's fair.
I think that they're way more likely to get 11 than they are 9, but I would say about 10.
That's fair. It's basically a 2-team division, right? The NFC East. It's basically the Cowboys or the Eagles. I can't imagine the Giants or the Redskins are going to do much.
The Redskins were pretty... I don't know what... This is evidence that my sports knowledge correlates with how much I'm enjoying the video games. I don't even know what's going on with the Redskins quarterback. Is Alex Smith back?
Alex Smith is still hurt. They just named Case Keenum. Not just, maybe it was like a week ago. They named Case Keenum the starter.
Yeah, so
and first round
team division.
Yeah, and first round pick Dwayne Haskins is riding the bench. I'd probably agree with you. 10 wins seems about right for the Eagles, but if they won 11 and, a lucky break or two, they could win 12. Like, that wouldn't surprise me either. Obviously, Vegas knows what it's doing. That's why they set it at 10.5. You could believe either direction.
Yeah. The only way Vegas could ever be, like, intentionally wrong is they're putting it they're controlled by the bettors, not necessarily how good the team is. So they're setting a line that what they think the most even split is going to be on the bets, not necessarily, hey, the guy setting the line thinks they're going to win 10.5. It's going to be, if he thought he had some insider info and the Eagles were going to win, there's going to be some problem. They were only going to win 6 games. He wouldn't set it at 6 games. He would still set it at 10.5 because he's trying to get half the people to take the over and half the people to get the under.
Yeah. That
way, it's I don't know what sports betting would be, maybe like a 10% cut for the casino. They want to make it as even as possible so that they are guaranteed the most amount of money.
Yeah. I did see a crazy story about when Andrew Luck abruptly retired. Someone was able to get into a sports book before the over-unders were updated and put like a $2,000 bet. I think the Colts were at 9.5. Which they probably are not going to.
Yeah, I would say no.
Yeah, that would be a hard under now, minus Luck. And someone was able to get in on that, and props to him, man.
Yeah, well, good job. Anyways, I think we can cap it there, Brian. That way I don't have to get too crazy in the description, and I can just write about the one thing. It was pretty much about video games and its associated gambling today, whether it was gambling on those sports teams in real life or gambling on yourself to pull a 98 overall LeBron from the NBA 2K20 My Team store.
Oh, one last thing real quick.
He's got one more.
One last thing. Scale 1 to 10, price notwithstanding.
13.
How excited are you for All Elite Wrestling All In this Saturday?
Well, I was a little less excited when I saw that Dustin Rhodes was not going to be on the card, but probably a 6. I don't know if I was generally like a 4 or a 5 level of excited for a WWE pay-per-view. I just want AEW to give them some competition.
100%. I'm with you there, man.
All right, so that's Unpopular Opinions. One more shout out to eToro, sponsor for today's show. I'm Ryan Tofil, that's Bryan Chai, and have a good evening, good morning, good night, whatever. I don't care.
See ya.